Good day everyone! Today we are going to talk about the applicable teaching strategies for doing painting in elementary grades. So for now, let us start in identifying what is painting. So painting is an art which brings expression to the experiences of the past, as is representation art. It is also a form of visual art that shows the intrinsic values of man through the creative and imaginative use of line, color, value, shape, medium, and others. So that was the meaning of painting. So let us provide some brief history about painting. Even before written record was made available, man had already been engaged in painting as expression of his yearning for creativity and communication. This was evident on walls of caves during the Paleolithic period. These paintings are crude pictures of animals and primitive drawings consisting of few stick figures. An example of this is the Amono-Rizal petroglyphs. So let us now move on to the elements of painting. The elements of painting are the basic components or building blocks of a painting. In Western art, they are generally considered to be color, tone, line, shape, space, and texture. In general, we tend to agree that there are 7 formal elements of art. However, in a 2-dimensional medium, form is dropped. So we really have 6 basic elements of painting. We can also bring 4 additional elements, which is composition, direction, size, and time or movement. Ito the question to round it off at an even 10 elements of painting. So now, let us discuss first the elements of painting, which is color or hue. Color is the heart of every painting. It is arguably the most important element because it sets the tone for how viewers feel about the work. It can, for instance, be warm and inviting or cold and stark. Either way, color can set the mood for a piece. There are endless ways that painters can play with color quite often. An artist may be drawn toward a particular palette that tends to define the style of their entire body of work. So, alam naman natin na hindi mo masasabing painting ang isang painting kung wala itong color. Dahil ang color ang pinaka-importante at pinaka-mahalagang aspect ng painting dahil dito nakikita natin kung ano ba ang nais ipakahulugan ng painting na natin ginawa. Dahil alam naman natin na ang bawat kulay ay mayroong kahulugan or sinisimbolo sa bawat mga pintor. Halimbawa na lang dito ay ang kulay na itim. Maaaring sabihin na kaya niya ginamit ang kulay na itim dahil siya ay malungkot. Sa ganung paraan makikita natin ang ekspresyon ng painting dahil sa kanyang kulay. At ang kulay ang nagpapadagdag ng kagandahan sa isang painting. So, color theory. It is one of the keys to working with color, especially for painters. Each new color you introduce to a canvas play a vital role in the perception viewers have of the piece. So, ayun nga, dahil alam naman natin na color ang isa sa pinakamahalaga at pinaka-importante part ng painting. So, it is very important for us to add some color in every painting we make. So, let us now move on to the next one, which is the tone and the value. Tone and value are used interchangeably in painting. It is essentially how light or dark a paint is when you strip away the color. Understanding how to use it can greatly affect the way your art is perceived. So, yung tone ay ang nagpapakita ng pagiging light or dark ng iyong ginawa. Sa pamamagitan nito, mas na-emphasize o mas nabibigyan natin ng kahulugan yung painting na ginawa natin dahil sa pagkaka-light or dark ng kulay na ating ginawa sa ating painting. Dahil maaari natin sabihin na kaya light color para sa sensitivity and sa darkest color para sa strong feeling or sudden emotions. So, every color of paint has an almost endless variety of tones available to it. You can mix with mediums and neutral paints to adjust its tone however you like. Some paintings have a very limited range of tones while others include stark contrasting tones. At its most basic, tone can be best seen in grayscale. Black is the darkest value and the white is the brightest. A well-rounded painting often has both of these, with highlights and shadows adding to the overall effect of the piece. While we tend to think of lines when drawing, painters must also focus on it. After all, every brushstroke will make create a line. So, ayun nga sinasabi na yung tone daw ay nakakapagbigay ng contrast tone. Dahil maaari natin pag-combine ang dalawang kulay. Halimbawa, to make a color yellow-green, we must combine yellow and green. So that was an example of combining 2 different colors to create one Now let us move on to line. Line is defined as a narrow mark made by a brush or line created where two objects or elements meet. It defines the subject of paintings and help us imply things such as movement. Painters should also be aware of different types of lines. Among these are implied lines, those that are not drawn but are instead implied by a brushstroke around it. Landscape painters in particular are often with the horizon line. Painters of all styles can add dimension to their work by employing the orthogonal and transversal lines found in drawings. So sinasabi na yung linya daw ay isa din sa mga elemento ng pagpipinta or painting dahil sinasabi na mahalagang factor din ng linya dahil dito na susundan natin ang maayos kung ano ba yung tamang lalagyan natin ng paint, kung saan ba tayo magsisimula at kung saan tayo dito. At sinasabi din na kailangan maging be careful din yung mga pintor natin dahil minsan yung mga brushes nag-decorate siya ng ibang linya and yung linya na yun is hindi naman kailangan o hindi naman dapat na nandoon. Kaya yun ang isang mahalagang paalala sa mga pintor. So next one is the shapes. Every piece of artwork includes the element of shape, which ties into line and space. In essence, a shape is an enclosed area that is made when lines meet. When that shape takes on a third dimension, as in sculpture or some mixed media, we then also have form. Artists often train themselves to see the shapes in everything. By breaking down the basic shapes of a subject, it creates an accurate representation of it in paintings and drawings. Additionally, shapes may be either geometric or organic. The former are the triangles, squares, and circles we're all familiar with. The later are those shapes that are not well defined or those found in nature. So, shape daw ay isa din sa isang mahalagang element or factor ng painting. Alam naman natin na ang pagpe-paint ay nakakabuo ng iba't ibang hugis dahil maaaring mag-paint tayo ng mukha ng tao o mga kulay o ano pa mang bagay na may sukat. So, let us now move on to space or volume. It's another crucial element in any art and it can be used to great effect in paintings. When talking about space in art, we think of the balance between positive and negative space. Positive space is the subject itself, while the negative space is the area of a painting around it. Artists can play with the balance between these two spaces to further influence how viewers interpret their work. For example, a landscape with a smaller tree and horizon, positive space that allows the sky, which is the negative space, to take up most of the canvas can make a very powerful statement. Likewise, painting or portrait in which the subject, which is positive, looks in the direction of the negative space can be just as intriguing as it is when they were looking straight at the viewer. So, sa painting, parang sinasabi natin na parang maliit lang na bagay yan. So, hindi dahil, halimbawa, ang simpleng space ay makakapagbigay ng napakaraming ibig sabihin or kahulugan sa ating viewer. Dahil, for example, dapat yung mukha ng pinate mo ay nakaharap sa kanan at siya naman ay nakaharap sa kaliwa, marami na yung ibig sabihin. Kaya isang napakahalagang factor din ang space na dapat natin matutunan. So, the next one is texture. Paintings are the perfect medium to play with texture as well. This can be interpreted as a pattern within the painting or the brushstrokes themselves. Some paints, particularly oils, are the thicker and how they're applied on the canvas or board can give the work more depth because of the texture. For instance, if you take his brushstrokes hands-on, out dramatically. Similarly, impasto painting relies on very deep texture. Texture can also be a challenge for painters. Replicating the shiny surface of glass or metal or the rough feel of a rock can be difficult. It is on objects like this that a painter can rely on other elements of art, line, color, and tone, in particular to further define the texture.